Oh, there we go. Welcome back. We're live right now on Fox Local as we're trying to get set here. Moving from just the TV side to the Fox Local side. Eric Mangus is joining us. All right, let's start again. Let's reset ourselves with this storm that is ongoing. This is a storm to remember here in southeast Wisconsin.
We got an hour and a half to talk about it, Ben. So I think at some point we're going to go over some of the same information a couple of times.
Nope, just give it all out front, and then we'll think of all new things to talk about here.
Good point. Let's do that. So you hit on there. We're kind of going through a storm that we generally don't experience very often.
Two rare things here. People don't realize this, but getting more than a foot of snow in our neck of the woods, actually pretty rare. Blizzard warnings, extremely rare here. We got both those things.
Extremely rare. So generally, most of the snows we get are less than 4 inches. And if you look historically, long-term, all-time records, we can go back to the 1800s in Milwaukee. We've only really had foot-plus snows in portions of southeast Wisconsin, maybe 1% to 2% of the time in history. So it does happen often.
Here's a question. Are we there yet? Are there communities that have hit the 12-inch mark?
We're definitely on pace for it. And a lot of our totals so far are definitely going to be pushing that range when it's all said and done. Farther inland, that will give us higher numbers, probably over that foot range.
Ooh,
so right
that's
now,
close to North Prairie.
North Prairie's pushing it. Pewaukee, over that 10-inch mark. Now, as the night goes on, these totals will be outdated. We need to get updates because I shoveled the weather deck not that long ago. We pushed a nice little trail in there, already starting to fill on in. But the biggest factor is how close are you to Lake Michigan? So very similar to how things shaped up on Tuesday. This system is very similar to that. A lot of moisture, but temp-wise is the big variable. The farther inland you go, the colder you generally are. And that's what we're seeing is definitely those highest totals. A little farther inland, Plymouth, up in Sheboygan County. So you're seeing still some of the heaviest of snow and gustiest of wind speeds up there. And talking about blizzard warnings, I mean, we haven't had one in southeast Wisconsin for well over 5 years now. So it's another thing that generally does not happen all that often. We get snow all the time in Wisconsin. We get cold all the time. But snow totals like this are quite uncommon, and we're not done yet. We could easily add maybe 3-6 inches on top of this once everything is done because we are still under watches and warnings until 3 a.m. Now, taking a little deeper dive into some of our biggest snows since the year 2000, started things off. Now, 10, 15-inch snows. 15-inch snows are very rare, especially in Milwaukee. Now, you need a lot of things to come together to get a 15-inch snow, but it's not crazy to get every 5 years or so a 10-inch plus snow, and we're due for one, all right? But so far, the thing with Milwaukee is what we're dealing with is very warm air next to Lake Michigan. I came from Bayview, and so it's still all slush mostly down there. So you head farther inland towards the airport, yes, they're seeing around 3.9, 3.8 so far of snowfall. So they're on pace to see an impactful snow, but if you go inland, totals are much higher. And so that's not a huge shocker there. So all this graphic shows you is our biggest snows of the season. Generally, we peak at around 10 inches, but it's only every 5 years or so that we do get those highest of totals. And I'm going to show this graphic again because this is applicable again, just like on Tuesday, where you see the highest totals and the equivalent to moisture that you see. So 1 inch of rain when you're 35 degrees to 40 degrees, you can still get snow, but it's going to be very slushy as it accumulates. And I can confirm in Bayview, the St. Francis area, all the way up through downtown Milwaukee, 1 to 3 inches of slush. I mean, this stuff is like throwing a water balloon. It is not going to be that nice, fluff, fun snow to take your dog out in. It was awful. My dog wanted to go out like 30 times today. Still did it, but it was not fun. 1 to 3 inches of slush when you have temps that warm. Now heading farther inland, kind of the sweet spot when you have a lot of moisture. When you get over 32 degrees, it still has a lot of moisture in it, but you can get that 3 to 5 inches of wet snow. That's where I think many of us are currently sitting at from basically the airport north. So if you're only really within 5 miles or so of the lake, you're probably more going to be in that very wet snow category into tonight. But areas inland, we've already seen this. 1 inch of rain can easily be 10 inches plus of snow if the temps are between 30 and 32. And even now, with how much moisture we have, we're probably in that 1 to 9, 1 to 10 ratio in terms of wet snow. We could easily be getting close to a foot in some spots here. A very impressive system as this continues to push off to the east. But one thing that's going to get kind of lost in the jumble is the temps that follow here. So current temps, we're actually still pretty average actually outside, but once we get into tomorrow, temps will be falling. Just to our west, even last night, Bismarck was frigid, a good 50-degree feel-like temp difference last night. Now into tomorrow and into Sunday, that difference actually shrinks. We're going to get some of that coldest of air in the lower 48s by Monday and Tuesday morning. 10 below. This is the actual temp, not feel like temp. 10 below will be possible Monday morning and Tuesday morning. So some of the coldest air we've seen since 2019. 2019 was an extreme year where we got down to 20 below in some spots, no problem. 10 below, we have not been there since 2019. We've gotten close. We've been 7 below, 8 below. We've not been 10 below, and that's where we could be flirting with heading into Tuesday morning as well. So very cold air to follow all this snowfall. So highly recommend, with all this wet snow that's going to be falling in some areas, get it off of your driveway, get it off of your sidewalk, because it is going to turn into cement. If you don't do anything with it, you just let it sit, and it's going to be very heavy when it freezes, and then you're going to have long-term consequences. But we hold on to this colder than average air well into Wednesday and into Thursday. Looks like this is going to stick around for a little while here, but it does improve a little bit by the end of next week. But we just really haven't had much winter cold basically since 2019. We've had it pretty easy. We've had some little stints. We've flirted with some very cold Arctic air masses, but this will be probably some of the coldest air we've seen in at least 4 years. So be ready for that too. So not only one of our biggest snows, but also likely some of our coldest temps to go along with it. Hello, winter. Welcome. Come on down. You're here officially. It looks like it's going to be sticking around at least until March. I'm sorry. That's just how things go. Now look at our radar and satellite now. We're still in a very well-developed cyclone at this time. So in physics and math, we learn all these things about how lows form and all the weather that's associated with it. Now, one model of showing and looking at the progression of how cyclones form, the Norwegian cyclone model, all right? That you can Google, it's pretty cool to look at, but we're kind of in the end stages of this low. It's still quite strong, still producing very strong winds wrapping around the backside of things. But as it pushes off to the east, it's going to be drawing down now drier air on the backside of it. Now that could limit some of the totals in some spots, but also is going to be bringing in colder air, which means we could actually see our higher accumulations lakeside compared to what we've seen so far today. Areas inland, you're still going to be getting that chance of moderate to heavy snowfall, but timing it out with Sky Vision Plus, tomorrow's weather today, still into tonight, early tomorrow morning, we'll have snow flying and wind speeds 15, 25 miles per hour sustained, but gusts over 35. I had some deck furniture blown over because of the wind speeds. Heavy snow on top of it will be likely blowing things all over the place as well in your yard. And we really don't get the snow to calm down until tomorrow morning, but the wind speeds will still be staying strong as that low pushes out of there. Wind is created by the difference of high to low pressure. This low is a pretty darn low, and as it pushes off to the east, lots of air is going to be rushing in to fill its place, and with it comes colder air too. So Saturday's going to be a big transition day. Really going to be feeling that winter bite by Sunday morning. So that's when we start to see that abnormally cold conditions. And then long term, we actually look a little calmer, but still looking well below average heading into the mid portion and then the beginning of the end of January. But Ben, looking at the temps here, single digits for highs, lows 8 to 10 below, no problem. So this is going to be quite the adjustment for, I guess, anyone that just hasn't lived here very long. Now, looking historically, this happens every 5 years or so. And some circumstances only every 10, but this will be some very cold air and factoring in the snow too. We just all need to be cautious and just kind of respecting our own limits. If you're feeling cold, you're feeling uncomfortable, just listen to your body. Your body's always right.
If you haven't lived here long, it'll be a tough adjustment. I think it'll be a tough adjustment even if you've like grown up here and you're 90 years old. This is going to be brutally cold temperatures.
Personally, Ben, I love when we have extremes because it's kind of just fun to think about, but I do understand. Yes, it will be an adjustment for all of us. But if you are a husky or you are a very burly man such as Ben, you'll handle it just fine.
Okay. I'm supposed to be in Puerto Rico, so I'll be okay with this.
It's similar to Puerto Rico.
Hey, speaking of a party, let's get out to Jason Calvi. He's in Wauwatosa, where he has found himself a block party, which is wild in the middle of a storm. Jason, and kind of breaking news because the last time we talked to you, half the block here without power. There are nearly 50,000 We Energy customers without power, so not surprised to find a few people without power here. Lights on there. Now keep going the other side of the street. What do we see over there, Jason?
Yeah, so we were showing you about a half hour ago that the lights were off here in Wauwatosa. We're on 74th near Clark. Now all of the lights are back on. So power is back on, but right now we've got a block party only in Wisconsin, right? So it's a snowstorm, and of course that means coming out and celebrating. And what they're doing actually is they're shoveling and guzzling. So they come and look at how great all the driveways look, and this is repeated all across the block here because the neighbors come together, they shovel each other's driveways, and then what do they do afterwards? Well, What's going on here, folks?
Cheers. We're having a drink.
And you don't need a cooler because you've got the snow right here to keep everything nice and cool. So this is called Shovel and Guzzle. Tell us where the impetus came for this.
Well, we started last winter in the middle of one of our big snowstorms, and we were all going to be out here working at the same time. So we thought, let's pitch in, help each other out, and then let's celebrate our hard work with some drinks with neighbors.
So what are you guys drinking?
Eagle Park, Hammerschlagen.
And it's not frozen. It's still.
It's a little slushy.
You're drinking. We're having slush out here. What is the experience like to come to? I mean, you all have to do this, right? You all have to shovel your sideway, your driveway. But Julie, right, Julie?
Yes, sir.
Julie Baker, one of the organizers here. What is the goal of bringing everybody together to do this project together?
Oh, it's about neighborhood. It's about friends. It's about, community values, helping each other out during the Snowmageddon. Let's embrace it, and let's be kind, and let's have a little fun, too.
It really is a lot of fun out here. This whole project of getting the community together kind of started during the pandemic when people were staying inside. They weren't maybe going out to work and things like that. What happened during the pandemic in 2020?
Well, our block captain right here, he can actually answer for us.
Block Captain, what's your first name and last name? We're live on Fox Local right now.
My name is Derek Steinmetz. So during the pandemic, we would get together in our driveways when we weren't supposed to be getting together inside, and it became a ritual every Wednesday night. And we happened to have snow on a Wednesday night last year, and we all got together and shoveled each other out and then pulled a fire pit out and enjoyed some beers as a neighborhood.
Awesome. And that's what we're doing today. Obviously, it's a Friday, so it's even better to celebrate, right?
Even better.
What's the experience like that everybody comes together and shovels at the same time and then has a little party afterwards in the cold, drinking cold beer?
It definitely makes the experience much more enjoyable than it would be when you're doing it alone.
So Shovel and Guzzle, we're at 74th and Clark in Wauwatosa. This is something that they're doing. And anybody have any last thoughts before we wrap up today?
Thanks for coming, and everybody should have their own Shovel and Guzzle.
Yes.
Shovel and Guzzle, only something you would find in Wisconsin. And look at how good the driveways look compared to, to the streets. Pretty thick snow here in the streets. They're not going to be shoveling the streets. It would be way too much work. But right now, definitely celebrating a little snowstorm, snow day, community coming together for a block party in the midst of a snowstorm. Ben?
You'd get that street cleared out more if you invited the truck drivers to the Guzzle and Shovel.
No, we do not want them drinking and
well,
driving the
you got to
plow.
at least invite them to, when their shift's done, to come on over. Then they'll plow those streets.
Jason, we're impressed with two things: the clean lines on the sidewalks, and that you found a Foster's man. That's like a liter of Foster's that somebody's drinking out of a can there.
We got Australia visiting.
All right, Jason Calvi reporting live from a block party.
You were kind of joking about this earlier, though, Ben. People that haven't lived here very long. We actually have someone that just got here.
Zoe Chapala, and she's out on the roads tonight in Waukesha, I believe, Zoe. And the last time we took your shot, it did not look good. Still doesn't look good. Where are you? What are you seeing?
Yeah, so right now we are on these side streets in the Waukesha area, and we're starting to see these snowplows tackle this area. They're being persistent, but so is the snow. It's coming down hard and fast. The wind is blowing. It's wet outside. It's gross. It's really not helping these road conditions. We're actually going to take a turn here because I want to tell you what it feels like. Whenever you turn, you slide. I mean, you can't avoid hydroplaning. Every time we come up on a stoplight, too, we have to brake a lot earlier than we normally would if there wasn't so much of a buildup of snow. And you have to press so hard on the brakes that you can feel them kind of grinding together, if you know what I mean. Thankfully, we are seeing fewer cars on the road, so they are adhering to that message we're spreading. If you don't have to be on the road tonight, don't. We've seen a handful of cars that have either crashed, spun out, got stuck in a ditch. A lot of these cars were left abandoned because tow trucks aren't even making the trip out here tonight. That's how dangerous it is. It's just not worth the risk.
Yeah, it looks. You are definitely, we were talking about the snow range impact. We'll keep your shot and bring Eric Mangus in here. The impact right along the lake, very slushy, couple inches. It is a mess. But look, here we are out in Waukesha, and it looks like they're in the 10-inch range here.
That's the sweet spot. Between them and Milwaukee, we're getting some of our highest totals. Now, Zoe, we're kind of joking earlier about, for Wisconsinites, this isn't a huge adjustment. Now, you're from Rockford, so this isn't like a crazy adjustment for you. But from the beautiful land of Rockford now to Milwaukee, how welcome do you feel? And is this winter already making you annoyed?
Oh, we got a train going here?
Oh, boy.
Oh, yeah, there is a train coming.
You hit it at the right
just
point,
letting us
though.
through.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, I'm getting down with this Wisconsin weather for sure. I don't remember seeing a snowstorm this bad. I mean, we've had some pretty mild winters in my experience so far. I think the last time we had a snowstorm this bad, I must have been in high school. So
well, you're getting the real Wisconsin experience, because here we're going to get the maybe a foot of snow out in Waukesha, but then the 1-2 punch, what is your face is going to feel like next week?
It's going to hurt.
You're not going to be able to feel it.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, it's going to get cold for sure.
I mean, look, like you just have to be used to being itchy all the time, dry skin, because with the cold too comes really staticky conditions. You know, it's not going to be ideal, but you know what? We're going to make the best of it, you know?
Well, thank gosh we moisturize, right, Eric?
Yeah, we have our routine down. The key is the nighttime moisturizer routine. We talked about this.
Zoe, can you talk about your journey tonight, where you started, which communities you've hit tonight, and who do you think is the worst when you've been out tonight?
Well, so I will tell you, Eric was talking about the lake effect, right? And we're seeing it a little more slushy in the Milwaukee area, but the further west you go, the worse it gets. So I think we've been around Brookfield, we've been in the Waukesha area, Delafield, we've been on the interstate, and I will say that there is probably a little, because there's more traffic on the interstate, that's where we were seeing more kind of crashes, accidents, things like that. Here on these city side streets and things like that, it's a little easier to see because it's more lit than the interstate.
Yeah.
But
I think they're doing a pretty good job,
where
too.
You are.
This is a main road here, Zoe, and I got to say, it looks like the road crew is doing a pretty good job on the main thoroughfares through the city.
Oh, for sure. I would agree with that. I think that their priority has been the interstate, and they're trying to get to these side streets as much. But you also see a lot of secondary plows out here as well, helping out the main plowers. So I think that that has also been helping a lot. This is probably the best that we've seen it since the snow really started picking up.
Zoe Chapala and Mike Basuic driving the car for us tonight. Great view. Appreciate that. All right, Eric, let's talk about this. It was such a tricky storm to forecast and continues to be, but the lake has played a big role as we move in through the night. Now the lake is continuing to provide moisture and keep this thing going.
It's kind of a little engine that could. So Lake Michigan, you know, it takes longer to get colder and get warmer than the surrounding land. Now, what this can do is it can help you enhance some of our systems, such as this. If you have an eastern wind running over some of that more warm, moist air that kind of pushes inland. But the tricky thing is, Ben, why we have such a narrow band of sleet and kind of slush close to the lake is it brings in some of those temps along with it. Right. So you love it and you hate it at the same time. It can ruin your snow forecast. It also can make them as well. I think it's still a kind of a nice ally to have because it also can stabilize the atmosphere come severe weather quite a bit. But looking at our headlines here, what we're looking forward to for the rest of the night is heavy snow will continue, especially areas inland. That county in is kind of the sweet spot from Waukesha up to Washington and western Sheboygan County, likely to see the highest totals out of this one. Now, as we look long term, cold air is to follow. This is going to be kind of the secret, I guess, thing that's might get kind of lost in the shuffle of things, but yeah, when you have an impactful snow, you're not really looking long term. You're thinking about the now. Well, long term, we're going to be talking about dangerous cold as temps will get down to the -10, maybe? We could be within those single digits, no problem, negative single digits. Maybe get down to the negative teens farther northwest, but still, snow totals are still coming on in. But some of our rough estimates to this point, some of the reports we've gotten, some of the viewer photos sent on in, it looks like probably North Prairie, you're in the lead, almost a foot officially now. Milwaukee, 10.5, probably going to be seeing more and more into tonight. Plymouth, 9.5 as well. Burlington at 9 inches, which is impressive though, just due to Burlington's location. But again, that one county inland away from Lake Michigan looks to be the best spot to be if you want the highest of totals. West Dallas though, 8 1/4, 8 2 1/3. pretty decent up there just south of Tosa. So it is looking like this is going to be a pretty impactful snow and likely our biggest for quite some time. If we graph out our biggest snow since the year 2000, I showed this earlier, but 15 inches, that's a pretty hard snow to get to. You need a lot of moisture for that to occur. Lake Michigan, it helps with that. But we haven't had one that's been close to 15 inches for quite some time. Now, in the last 5-10 years, probably that 10-inch range has been the harder thing to get to in Milwaukee. Now, interestingly, the snow that we had a couple nights ago, 3.7, is our biggest snow of the season at Milwaukee International Airport so far. Now tonight, I think we'll be pushing past it. It's going to be a wet snow, so we're probably not going to get to that foot, at least at the airport, but areas inland, you're probably already to it, and you'll continue on into tonight. Now talking about that ratio, the rain to snow ratio, a key factor in any snow forecast because of temps. Lake Michigan, 35, 40-degree air temps over Lake Michigan. When you get an inch of rain, that can be equivalent to about 1 to 3 inches of slush. So a 1 to 1 to 1 to 3 ratio, which I've been seeing most of the time here at Bayview during the day, up to St. Francis, up to downtown Milwaukee. But areas inland, you have been seeing a little bit more. Now, I'd say right here in Brown Deer, so the studio is a few stones throw away from Lake Michigan. We are having a wet snow, but I think we're pretty close, around 6 inches here at the studio so far. A 1 to 6 ratio, still very wet snow, compacting, and once that freezes, it is not fun to move. So that 33 to 35 degree range. But the sweet spot, if you want the biggest snow totals here tonight, you're going to want to be 30 to 32 degrees. And this is what we're seeing, about a county in and even county farther west than that. So 1 inch of rain, 10 inches of snow. Another big factor is just where the low's located. But I'll get to that a little bit here. But first, talking about the cold that's going to follow when all this is done. So once we get into Saturday night, cold air has already been knocking on our door. We're going to continue to see cold air plunging on down, eventually down into the single digits and then negative single digits, maybe even the negative double digits by Monday morning. And if we don't do it Monday morning, I think Tuesday morning is even better chance as we really settle on into this well below average temp cold air mass. So the cold air has been one thing that I've been worried about long term. But before we get too far ahead of ourselves talking long term, Tom, we got to talk about what we're dealing with now. So this snow is going to be still going on into midnight, early tomorrow morning. How has this kind of evolved as the day has gone on? Because, Tom, you've been here since early afternoon. What's something you've noticed about this system that's kind of set it apart so far to other systems in these past couple of years?
Yeah, Eric, that's a great question. And I think what it is, for me anyways, was this first batch this morning. If you notice, Tuesday morning system wasn't that bad in the morning, right? But this morning, boy, it hit us hard after about 4 to 5 o'clock in the morning. And the science behind that has to do with the fact that we had warm air on the front side of the system at about 5,000 feet. We're getting kind of in the weeds here a little bit with the science, but it's really important because that warm air aloft ends up creating instability in the atmosphere. And that was the reason for that heavy band of snow this morning and why the morning commute for those that had to be out and about was really rough. And that's why we had the heavy snow rates. Really the heaviest part of this system, quite frankly, was this morning with that what we call warm air advection band this morning and into the middle part of the day. Well, let's take a look, just kind of a recap here of the blizzard warning that's in effect until 3 o'clock in the morning for Sheboygan and Fond du Lac counties. Winter storm warning for everybody else. And that runs until 6 o'clock, or I'm sorry, until noon tomorrow. Now, important to mention, the blizzard warning, when that goes away at 3 a.m., Sheboygan and Fond du Lac will still be under the warning, the winter storm warning, until noon tomorrow. But bottom line is this. We're already seeing signs of this thing starting to wrap up. So that's good news in the sense that I think in the coming hours, we're going to start to see lighter snows around here. Take a look. In fact, I know, Kenosha, we've been hearing from a lot of people right along the lake saying, I just saw one woman say, the lake failed us again. Right along the lakeshore with barely any snow, just a lot of slush, literally within a few blocks of the lake. You go just a couple miles west, we are 4 miles due west of Lake Michigan, and we have a good 6-7 inches of snow on the weather deck. Then you go just a little bit farther west down Brown Deer Road to Menominee Falls, and they have over 10 to 11 inches of snow. And then you keep going into Waukesha County, and you got a foot or even more than that at this point. It is incredible to see the difference from the warm lake going just a little bit bit west. Now, what we're noticing on the radar tonight, couple of things. One is the dry air coming in from the south, and notice the dry air to the west of Madison. So we are still seeing moderate snow in most of our area, and that's in part due to the northeasterly winds coming in. It's creating slow traffic here, so obviously you want to stay off the roads here throughout the night tonight. But broadening the view out, you'll notice this here. As the area of low pressure is moving northeast, we are going to be having a northeasterly wind around here, which is what we're seeing off of a good chunk of the lake. And that is called a fetch off of Lake Michigan. When you get a lot of that wind coming in off of the open water, that in turn is picking up the lake moisture, and that's why we're seeing the moderate snow that we're seeing right now. But we're seeing those breaks now. The dry air is starting to infiltrate this system to the west of Madison and also down to the south. So it's going to start to squeeze us here, and I think what's going to end up happening in the coming hours, we're going to start to see holes being poked into this snow. So it's going to start to get a bit lighter, and guess what? Overnight tonight, by midnight, 1 o'clock in the morning, the wind is going to change from the northeast to the north and eventually the northwest. And when that happens, that's when the dry air really gets sucked into the system, and we just see some light snow showers overnight. The wind is going to continue to blow, but the wind direction has been so critical here with this storm system, especially living next to a huge lake. It has been a complicated forecast, but as Eric talked about, this is really a historic storm. I mean, we typically do not see 12, 13, 14-inch snow amounts in one storm in a given season. It's pretty rare for us. And that is something that we've seen here, again, in many areas. But things are going to start to wind down is the bottom line. But the wind is staying strong. Now, notice here, the heaviest or strongest of the winds are in our northern counties, which is where that blizzard warning is positioned. So that's why there's a blizzard warning for Sheboygan and not for Milwaukee. Does it mean that conditions are that much better in Milwaukee? No. So don't get hung up between a blizzard warning and a winter storm warning. It's still bad everywhere. It's just worse in Sheboygan from a visibility standpoint because of the stronger winds. But here we are looking at downtown right now, and you can't really see many of the buildings as the visibility remains on the low side. So temperatures are in the 30s, and we've got the air pressure that is very low, and we're going to be seeing that here as we go throughout the night. But things starting to wrap up as we go throughout the night. Guys, back over to you.
I'm going to take advantage of having two meteorologists here. Let's talk timeline just for a second here, gentlemen. What hour are we talking about here as we're about to hit 7 p.m.? When do we think that this will wrap up?
Sure, I can take that one. So I think it's going to be gradual as we go throughout the night. So we're starting to see signs of that in our southern counties and out west towards Madison. So I think what's going to end up happening is it's going to be gradual. After midnight, though, is when you'll really notice that difference when the wind starts to shift around.
Do you concur? Maybe we get a meteorologist
battle.
fight here on Fox Local.
I think Tom is totally wrong in this one. No, I'm just kidding. No, but I think the overall messaging here, though, is regardless of if you're still, seeing snow or not, I mean, to have a blizzard warning, you do not need snow, if I'm not mistaken, Tom, right?
I think you still need to have that low visibility. So typically you need to have some snow, but the amount of snow does not matter. So you can have a blizzard warning with a ½ an inch of snow as long as that snow is falling 1/4 of a mile visibility or less and 35-mile-per-hour wind gusts or more. All of those criteria for 3 hours or more.
Yeah, and to our friends who are in Sheboygan County or in Fond du Lac County, or the people watching on Fox Local maybe more north of there, what's the difference between what's happening there and what's happening in other areas that have a lot of open space like Walworth County?
Sure. So the only real difference is the wind speed, right? And that's why I say don't get caught up between blizzard warning and winter storm warning. It's really just a few miles an hour difference in terms of the wind. In order to reach that blizzard warning criteria, you have to have the wind to 35 miles per hour or greater for 3 hours or more. Walworth County, Milwaukee County, Waukesha County is about 25 to 30. So is it a huge difference? No, but it makes a difference in issuing a blizzard warning or not.
And Eric, you're talking about this is really rare, though. We do not get a lot of blizzard warnings around here.
It's pretty hit or miss, Tom. I mean, looking back historically, I mean, we even have it written on our little whiteboard. The last time we had a blizzard in southeast Wisconsin, you have to go back to 2018 for Walworth County, if I'm not mistaken.
That is correct. Yes, Walworth, Racine, and Kenosha was back in 2018. Yeah. Milwaukee County was 2011.
So, especially when you get out towards the Great Plains, when there's literally no wind breaks. So, Wyoming, Montana, It's rough country this time of year. They got nothing to stop the wind, so it's much harder for southeast Wisconsin, I'd say, to reach blizzard criteria. But as we were talking about earlier, wind speeds, visibility, a big factor in that. And looking at some of the totals coming in, too, on top of that, this is obviously very impactful. And on top of it, we've had big snows in the last 5 years or so. I showed a graphic earlier talking about how we really haven't had a big 10-inch snow for Milwaukee, per se, but we've had some decent ones so far. How's this kind of storm so far reacted for those inland counties from Waukesha up to Sheboygan? Has that been surprising? Looking at your snow map, I feel like we're very much on track in those areas.
Yeah, no, I think we're going to be over a foot in many areas. And what surprises me about it is the fact that the snow ratio is so low. And what we mean by that is a typical snow, consistency of the snow would be what we call 10-to-1, where 10 inches of snow, if you melted it down, would be 1 inch of water, would be 1 inch of liquid in that snow. If it was 0 degrees outside, that might be 20 inches to 1, so a very dry snow. Well, our snow consistency out there right now is about 8-to-1, so it's wetter than average, so it's got more moisture in it than a typical snow. Why does that matter? Well, it compacts more. Right? A wetter snow compacts more. We saw that on Tuesday where it was really more slushy. This is actually a little bit drier, I think, than Tuesday's snow, but it's really tough to get a foot of snow with an 8-to-1 snow ratio. I think if it was 0 degrees out, you know, an 8 inches of fluffy snow, let's say, is much easier to achieve than 8 inches of wet snow. And that's, I think, what surprises me about what we're seeing in our inland counties. You really have to have a robust system in order to get a foot of heavy wet snow.
And we're seeing different consistencies by the lake where it's all slush and literally it looks like I was saying earlier, like someone at Wimbledon getting rain off the grass. That's what the shoveling looked like. People just like shoveling piles of water into the street. And then here in Brown Deer, it's a totally different scene.
You're absolutely right. And, you know, right along the lake, yeah, I mean, it's literally just, you know, almost, you know, 2-to-1 or 1 to, I mean, it's really it's just slop, right? And then it gets a little bit drier the farther inland you go. And that's something that, you know, is interesting and unique to the warm lake. You know, and that then feeds back into the warm December that we had. If the lake had even been 3 or 4 degrees cooler in terms of the lake water, this would have been, I think, a much different scenario, probably even a heavier snow event, certainly closer to the lake than we had today. And Eric, you brought up a great point in that we're talking about in excess of a foot for snow totals, but not for Milwaukee. Mitchell International, at least as of 4 or 5 o'clock, was still under 4 inches of snow. So we'll probably end up with 5 to 7 inches at the airport, right? But just a few miles inland, it's much higher than that. So we've got to remember that as we talk about this historically, that Milwaukee might say something in the record books there, but it's much higher than that a few miles west.
That's a good point, Tom. I think a lot of our records can get lost when you just try to gloss it over. I use Milwaukee for a lot of our stats just because we have a lot of data to go with it, but yeah, just because Milwaukee had less snow. I mean, some of our biggest snow since I've been here have been right along the Kettle Moraines. A little extra cold air damming, maybe a little orographic lift, you could argue.
Dodge County.
We have all these microclimates in southeast Wisconsin that makes it so fun and makes me pull my hair out. When talking about snow forecasting,
it's been a tricky one. All right, guys,
at least it isn't gray yet, Eric. Your hair's not gray yet like mine.
Stand by. We got a reset here at 7. Thanks for joining us. We're on Fox Local. You're watching continuing coverage of our winter storm. More than a foot of snow is expected, and it's really been bad out there. I do want to get to this developing story. This is new. Now at 7 p.m., we've got a major water main break that's affecting the city of Milwaukee. This is on the northwest side. There was a power outage at the Flores pumping station, so the power was shut off. The water pressure went down. The power went back on at the pumping station.
Okay.
High pressure went through the pipes and now has burst some of those pipes. So there are some water main breaks occurring, especially I'm just going to get 91st and Mill Road. And there are smaller breaks in the area, so many homes and businesses currently with low water pressure or no water in that area. Crews are working to restore it, and they're battling the weather.
It is tricky timing because if we're going to have dropping temps after this follows, that is worrisome. If we're going to have freezing, that's going to be occurring in areas that you do not want frozen water, such as basements and other waterways.
Stephanie Quirk, she's live on the scene, I believe, at the water main break. Steph, what are you seeing out there?
That's exactly right. We're at the corner of 91st and Mill, and if you take a look, Katie, my photographer, is going to pan. It's essentially a lake right here. Now, I spoke with MPD on scene here, and they say that crews are working to restore it. Now, if you look further down that way, you can see some of the power outages are also, homes are being affected. The street lights are out down this road. And I actually am going to show you, if you want to walk with me here, I'll show you just how deep this water is, just stepping out to it. So as I mentioned, crews are working to restore it, but
we don't want your socks
some
to get
homes
wet.
and businesses.
We will take your word for it.
They already did.
Okay, you're at that
They
point
already
where
did. When I went and talked to police over there, I was like, you know, you got to do what you got to do for the job. So yeah,
well,
it is.
I don't know what's in a lot of that water.
Wet clothing is the dangerous thing that comes with cold, but.
Stefan, there was reports that, I just saw a big chunk of snowfall, I think, from, and don't get hit by a car while you're in. I'm surprised to see traffic moving through here. I know there was reports that maybe part of the road somewhere in the area had collapsed by one of the pipes. Are you seeing that? Have they shut down a lot of the streets around there? Obviously, where you are, there's a road still there, even though it's several inches of water on the roadway.
Yeah. Well, we were down that way, and it was blocked off. They are blocking off the streets, but as you see, cars are coming through and kind of splashing here. I don't see any breaks necessarily in the area we are. Again, we're at 91st and Mill.
Mm-hmm.
However, the water is, as you can see, it's clear that it's essentially a lake right here.
Yeah, that's
but
Lake
they
Mill
were
Road.
blocking off roads. Yeah, it's pretty much.
Or would it be Mill Road Lake? Would that be a better name for
I
what's
don't know
going
the
on?
exact classifications, but Stephanie, could you talk about, so are we in like a depression here, or is this like a hill? Because this looks like the water's collecting and not going anywhere. I imagine the storm drains still have leaves and other snow in the way.
Oh!
Because I'm thinking long term, because this could easily if they don't get the water out of there, the cold air that's coming behind this Saturday, Sunday, Monday, it's going to freeze all that. But it does look like that's at least drained.
Yeah. Well, right now, we saw a DPW truck pull up right here and crews get out. I'm not sure exactly where they went, but it seems like the water is flowing down right here. It looks like a sewer right there coming down. They do say crews are on the scene. All I know right now from police is that they're working to restore it. Power is out for several homes in this area. Water pressure may be low, and there was a water main break.
Yeah, if you're just joining us here on Fox Local, there has been a major water main break, actually several different breaks. This all started with a pumping station that lost power. When the pumping station regained power, the pressure was too much and has now burst several pipes, where Stephanie Quirk is standing live. I can see there's looks like vans behind you from I believe the waterworks department. Are there workers that are out in the street right now? I know, according to them, they're dealing with several different locations where these pipes have burst.
Yeah, it looks like crews got out of a vehicle right there and went somewhere to work to restore this. Now, we do see somebody walking in the middle of the road here. I assume they look like they were directing traffic, but now they seem to be going up to police to speak with them. I don't know where crews went. There's also a truck up there working. But the water, it seems like the water, just from walking, it doesn't seem like it's gotten any lower from the time that we got here. We got here about 15 minutes ago, and I stepped out into the water, and it doesn't seem like it's getting any better, decreasing at all at this time. Again, they do say crews are on it, and that's all we know for now.
If there's multiple breaks, I mean, that's not going to be an easy thing just to shut off at one spot. You could easily have multiple locations.
Right.
Yeah, Steph, can you pan over? We'll keep your shot here. I want to ask Eric a couple of questions about the timing here. How much time, I mean, we're under the gun here because you said, Eric, the cold air is coming. How soon will that brutal cold air be moving in?
So by Sunday morning, we could have low temps below 0. And then Monday, Tuesday, it gets even colder from there. So if that roadway doesn't clear, I mean, for now, it looks like it's a few inches of water. There is at least some draining going on. My concern is if that does plug up at any point, if that looks like the roads near most of where we live, we still have plenty of leaves and everything to clog that up. If you can't get the water out of there, that intersection could be an ice rink. We go from Lake Mills to Pond Mills. pond hockey mills. I don't know. It's not going to be a good situation if that freezes, and that could very much happen in the next couple of days. But crews are on it at least.
Yeah, we know there are several crews out there from Waterworks. They're talking about the weather here, Eric, because they got to get to the valves that are underneath sometimes the road there and to shut them off. And in this weather, it's just making it difficult because of how cold and the snow and the ice that's on top of some of these valves.
We'll factor in a 50% increase in travel time, likely, because you're going to have to get even longer to get to some of these locations. Multiple valve breaks in multiple spots, intersections, I imagine, look similar to this. Finding the point source of where that break was, because if you mentioned the beginning of this, a high pressure, it was a release, it was all backed up, basically, when they had emptied out the valves, or
right.
a large pressure buildup. You could have a lot of locations, and with snow like this, it is not easy to get anywhere. So in an ideal circumstance, you deal with this in easy weather, let alone some of our most impactful snow in almost 5 years.
Okay, Steph, appreciate the information, appreciate the picture. Stand by, we'll get back to you with the latest on this major water break that we're dealing with on the northwest side. This was started because of a power outage, and there are a lot of people without power in southeast Wisconsin right now. Let's get to the latest numbers from We Energies. They've been at, there's more than 40,000 customers without power in southeast Wisconsin. The number has been ticking down. They were close to 50,000. The last number I saw was about 43,000. I'm going to ask Michael if we have a latest number on there. Okay, I'm going to look it up right now.
Well, usually we're probably still in the tens of thousands, but Ben, when we have such wet, heavy snow, it's so much weight. So much weight that comes down along with it that you have to consider. Yeah, it's still, maybe the totals might not be as impressive, but as Tom was mentioning earlier, the liquid water equivalent, this is a lot of weight still being weighed down on power lines.
We heard from the We Energies. Let's listen in.
We have hundreds of men and women out in the field trying to get around quickly and safely, dealing with these outages, but we're seeing that heavy, wet snow oftentimes coming onto large trees and large limbs, and that is coming into contact with our power equipment, causing power outages. We also, earlier in the week, when we had that first round of snow, saw a number of cars that slid off the road and came into contact with our power poles, causing long outages. So we'd encourage people and remind them, please do slow down on these slick roads. Outages are really dynamic, and each outage is a little bit different. So we do have, as I mentioned, hundreds of people out. We're sending crews around. Response times are probably going to be a bit slower today because our crews can only go as fast as the roads will allow, and they're always going to take safety number one. But that's why we encourage you to sign up in the app or go to the outage map on our website. We can actually give you individualized outage estimates. We can send it via text or email, phone call, through the app, however you want it. So that's probably the easiest and best way to get an update. But listen, we're not going to stop until everyone has their lights back on.
Or the easy and best way to get an update is just watch Fox Local. 45,000 We Energies customers right now without power. They're dealing with about 600 separate outages. The number's been fluctuating. How busy has We Energies been? Look at this on the X. We've restored power to more than 30,000 customers. Our crews are working nonstop, cleaning up outages from the storm and vehicles hitting our poles. Customers can get the latest information on our online outage map. This is out in Watertown, this picture from, looks like there is a power pole missing. I don't know if the truck there took it out, but that's what this picture implies there. And I'm really bad at math, but I know that 45,000 plus the 30,000 who didn't have power and been restored, that's more than 70,000, 75,000 customers.
That is a large portion of southeast Wisconsin. So it's very interesting. It's always fascinating with these emergency responses that we have to factor in the weather. You have to keep in mind they can't get there as fast with the roads and the conditions that they're at. But as we've seen, there's a huge variation in the roads. But fortunately, you know, we've got things covered here tonight. We have Zoe still in one of the heaviest snow portions in Waukesha County. Zoe, are you still at least kind of close to Waukesha at this time, and what are you seeing currently?
Okay, I'm not sure if we have Zoe Chapala. We do. Oh, there we go. Sorry, we didn't have your audio there, Zoe. Go ahead. Sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry. No, we're actually in a neighborhood right now off of College Avenue in Pewaukee. Roads are looking pretty good, but you have to kind of consider the circumstances. Before, we were driving on some really, really bumpy roads, but it really looks like that there has been some snowplows. You can see one right here, actually, off to the left, that are tackling these side streets. We're seeing a lot more people out here snow blowing too, because that snow just isn't letting up. A lot of the houses in the area that we are in right now have lights on, so the power looks good. In the next hour, Waukesha County is actually reducing its number of plows on county and state roads, and this is because they're expecting less people on the roads, and also they are taxed with manpower. Also coming up here too, County Department of Public Works will have 7 trucks plowing overnight until about 3:30 in the morning. Their main focus is going to be Highway 94, Highway 16, Highway 43, and Highway 41.
Zoe, I think we have a different definition
those areas
of.
Are,
you were saying the roads look okay here, and I think these roads look terrible.
It's only a 2-foot snowbank.
Look at the snowbanks on both sides of you.
And you have to consider kind of where we've been tonight. I'd say like these side streets, that was better than it has been. And I think it's just because the snowplows have actually been there to plow it. But like I said, that snow is falling hard and fast, and it's just not letting up. So every single time you think that a snowplow is making a difference, the snow just piles back on.
Eric, this is kind of the sweet spot, right? I mean, this is probably one of the highest snow totals out in Pewaukee in that area.
Yeah, from Pewaukee so far. I mean, this was an old report at the time. Now it's almost outdated, but they were over 9 inches of snow at the time, and we still easily could see 3 to 6 on top of this. Now, if you're going to learn to drive around this time, so if you're 15, 16 years old, this is the kind of white knuckle driving that it's not always like this all the time. This is quite uncommon, but this is the kind of weather I learned to drive in way back in the day. One of the snowiest Decembers in Minnesota's record is when I learned how to drive.
I'm sorry, I'm getting interrupted by the Fox lawyers saying, please don't listen to Eric Mangus.
This is a great time to do donuts in the parking lot.
With your 15-year-olds right now and drive around. Wind is going to be an issue tonight, blowing and drifting, and this is an area right now where there's some open spaces. Zoe, have you seen any drifts out there yet, and how's the wind by you guys?
Oh yeah, definitely some drifting, but also too when you're driving on the interstate and you've got these big semi trucks passing you, they splash you. So that's also an issue when it comes to seeing. But what I've been saying is that there's like this thick white haze that's just kind of hanging in the air, and it makes it hard to see very far in front of you. So a lot of people have been driving with their hazard lights on and obviously have been taking it really slow, but sometimes that doesn't even help.
I mean, some people acting like they're in the biggest hurry in the world in these circumstances. Have there been too many people trying to pass? Because I know when you get that backwash from tires, that's another really hazardous thing. It kicks up all the snow and slush on the roadways. Or have people been pretty at least following the speeds and keeping respectful distances?
Yeah, I would say so.
Good, and the good thing is
we were on the interstate earlier.
We don't see any cars on your shot. That's
go
the
ahead.
best thing. But yeah, the interstate earlier was really kind of hairy out there.
Yeah, there was actually a car who had spun out, and we all stopped. There wasn't many of us out there, but we all stopped, and we waited for them to spin back around, which is something I've never seen before.
Zoe Chapala, out on the roads, out in Waukesha County. Appreciate that. It looks like they've got a better handle on things in Milwaukee County, where I'm getting new information from the Sheriff's Department, and they've kind of broken the storm down hour by hour and saying kind of in the last hour, 3 disabled vehicles, which probably not far from a normal day. It doesn't say it, if it's storm related. A lot more active earlier. And actually, we're hearing from DPW earlier today that they say they're on top of this.
100 salt trucks out right now, or as we call them, they're sensors. Plow blades are mounted. You'll see them on the streets right now. We've seen less snow in the downtown eastern parts of the city as we have seen on the west side. I think there's like 3 to 4 sitting on the streets right now. Our garbaging and recycling facilities, our operations had started 1 hour early today to get all the recycling and garbage picked up so we can transition those vehicles this evening to help with the cleanup, because we're supposed to see another 6 inches of snow from what we're seeing. Residential streets were pre-treated last night in anticipation of the storm and the cold temperatures coming in, so it lasted us all the way until about 5 o'clock this morning before we started seeing some accumulation. We continue to have our mains passable. When I say mains, that's your arterial streets, your main thoroughfares through the city. We're focusing on them. As soon as we have those open and clear, we're going to transition to the residential areas. As you've seen in past snow operations that we've done recently, we're staying away from the parking lanes and the arterials, moving into the district so people can move onto those main areas and then coming back out. So when you see a roadway that's not fully plowed, we're keeping the lanes open, we're going to come back. 100% of the city will be plowed. Again, I can't express this enough. This storm is, right now it's a little wet and messy. Drive slow, take your time. There's no reason to rush around. I know a lot of our surrounding communities are closed. A lot of facilities in the local area are closed. If you're trying to go somewhere, take your time. I would prefer that, as many cars as possible to stay off of our streets. But just be careful. This is the largest snowstorm we've had in quite some time, and it might be unfamiliar to a lot of people. So just please be patient on the roadways.
The challenge the city of Milwaukee faces that a lot of other communities don't have to deal with, just the sheer size of it. And the difference is, right along the lake or at your home in Bayview may look a whole lot different if you're out closer to State Fair or you're on the western part of the city.
And he had an interesting point earlier. They did do a pre-treatment, but at some point you have such a rate of snow that it doesn't matter how much salt or brine you put down. The snow is going to accumulate at some point, but just drive slower than you have to if you do need to travel. And one thing that Wisconsin's very good at is reducing travel and, prioritizing whether you should go out or not in conditions like this. Neighborhoods getting together, shoveling together, enjoying a nice adult beverage. That's a good thing to do in situations like this. But soon, Ben, we're going to transition to cold air.
We're going to be wrapping scarves around our faces. Yeah, we got to start switching our focus here because as the storm winds down, here comes the brutal air.
Here comes old man winter. Now, if anything, a silver lining to having very wet snow, it's hard to have blowing snow when it falls and lands like concrete. And you have that fluffy snow that can just blow forever. You get big drifts because of it. That's going to be tough when you have such wet conditions like we have. But as the system clears out of the way, Saturday night into Sunday morning, very cold air will be taking its place. We'll be seeing temps falling rapidly into the negatives. Starting off Monday morning, we could get very close to 10 below zero, depending on what atmospheric model you look at. The low single digits is very likely. Now, once we get into Tuesday morning, another night where we're going to be down into those negative, possibly negative teens, especially areas to the northwest. But we're going to have some of the coldest air in the lower 48s by Tuesday morning. Would not be shocked by that at all as this Arctic air mass shifts over us and looks to sit at least over portions of the northern United States at least until mid next week, as we'll be holding on to colder than average air at least for a little while. Notice highs and lows will be staying in those single digits below zero, single digits above zero, at least to Thursday and next week until we at least get to the double digits, and then we can start celebrating that we at least get back to something more typical this time of year. But if we're going to have a cold spell, it's usually from mid-January to mid-February. That's the sweet spot for our coldest time of the year, and this is right on time. Now, Tom was talking about this earlier. Our low track is basically the perfect situation for us to get a big time snow, but due to how warm Lake Michigan has been, we've had a lot more slush and sleet next to the lake, but areas inland up towards Milwaukee into western Sheboygan County, that has been the big area for accumulation. Now, this low center is still just to our south, but as it tracks off to the east, we still have this wraparound potential. We could still get some snow, but drier air is going to be punching a lot of holes into it. So let's look at Scavenging Plus tomorrow's weather today to time it out. So still through midnight, we got snow on the ground, still snow flying as well. 15, 25 mile per hour sustained winds, gusts easily over 30. So it's going to be very windy outside. Very annoying to walk through if you don't have to. So just avoid it. Through early tomorrow morning, we'll still have snow falling, but accumulation will be much harder to occur as drier northwestern winds come on down. Now, it's still going to be windy into Saturday as we transition. That colder air shifts into the Great Lakes. And as that happens, it is going to get very cold very fast, as I mentioned earlier. So we're going to be getting down into the negative Sunday early morning. Wind speed still 20, 25 miles per hour. So with that cold of air, we could have wind chill values easily in the negative teens. Factor that into next week. Keep that in mind. Keep that hat and gloves in the car at all times. Because if your car breaks down, even 15, 30 minutes could be very, very uncomfortable. But in a Monday and Tuesday, we at least look dry, but we're going to be very cold outside as dry air takes over. And we stay colder than average. The coldest air mass we've seen in quite some time, likely heading into next week. It's been since 2019 that we've gotten to the negative double digits. Now, 2019 did set some records in terms of cold air. I don't think we're going to get that cold, but it's still going to be respectable. And looking long term, we're going to be lucky to get out of the single digits until at least Wednesday and Thursday. So looking at the lows, that is one of my big concerns, the negative, possibly getting to -10 outside, but it is going to be a very cold next week. But before I get too far ahead of myself, Tom, we got to look at this current snow that we're dealing with right now. We continue to see accumulation on our weather deck too. So since I shoveled, Tom, how much have we added onto the weather deck? Have we at least gotten back to around an inch?
Well, I've got to go out there and officially measure, Eric. I will do that after we talk more about the weather. It's been piling up slower at a slower rate now. By the way, we get free hot chocolate here at the station. And
I forgot that we get free hot chocolate.
Who did you bribe to get that, Tom?
It's good. It's a good hot chocolate.
Is it too hot though? You know, you got to give it. That machine's really hot.
It can be hot, but you know what? We're all good. Just set it out. Just set it out in the cold for a couple of minutes. You're all good. You know. So yeah. So that's what we got going on over here. Let's take a look. Let me show you what's going on in terms of the difference here between Lake Michigan and inland. And this is really wild. Cheryl sent this to us in Kenosha. She's like, "What are you talking about? What snow? I can see the grass. It was like an inch or two at best of slush. It was just kind of slop because she was just 3 blocks from the lake." That happened today, and I've heard from several folks right along the lake saying, well, what happened? Well, it was warm Lake Michigan, right? But unlike Tuesday, where that warm air really overspread the area, we had the stronger or the heavier snowfall just really a mile from the lake. We are 4 miles from Lake Michigan here at our Brown Deer Studios, and we've had about 6 to 7 inches of snow out there on the weather deck at last check. Now, I also want to show you this. This is from Kelly. She just sent this to me, and this was Kelly in Greenfield, and you can see that tree damage there. This is a part of the problem of the heavy, wet variety of snow. Kelly just sent this to me literally within about the last 2 minutes, and she said, thankfully, this did not hit our house. And when you get that heavy, wet snow on tree branches, that can certainly send those big branches down. That could very well be a reason of why we have tens of thousands without power tonight, because this is not a dry, fluffy snow that's just kind of blowing around where you kind of sneeze and the snow just dissipates, right? Not the case with this. You've really got to scrape that off and brush it off of your car and so on here. Now, in terms of snow totals, I mean, take a look at this. To get a foot of snow with this type of an environment where the snow is so wet, that's pretty rare. And that's what we've been seeing in our inland counties. Even West Dallas, that is only a few miles inland. 8.3 inches of snow, 9.5 in Plymouth, almost 11 in Pewaukee. So blizzard warnings continue till 3 in the morning, Sheboygan and Fond du Lac counties. Then you go back under the winter storm warning. That runs until noon tomorrow. It's just going to be slow travel all night, but here's the deal. We're seeing signs of this wrapping up a bit more in our southern counties with dry air coming in. It's kind of squeezing. If you notice this here, seeing dry air to the north, dry air to the west, dry air to the south, still a lake enhancement going on here. So that's what we're seeing with some of the heavier batches of snow, but it's kind of collapsing in on itself. And that's what we're going to be seeing in the coming hours. So that means after midnight tonight, we're still going to have rough roads, but the snow itself is going to be getting lighter. So what's happening now is the wind is out of the northeast coming in off the lake, enhancing that snow. But as the area of low pressure moves off to our east, it's going to change the wind direction. And as we often talk about on our broadcasts, wind direction is critical, right? So a northeasterly wind is going to keep that snow flying for the next few hours. But as the storm moves east, the wind shifts around to the north by midnight and northwest overnight. What does that do? Well, it cuts off the moisture source, number one, which is Lake Michigan. And number two, it starts bringing in drier air from the north and northwest. And you can see that. Look up here. You see how the dry air is cutting away at the snow in the last couple of frames? That's what's going to start to happen here as our wind changes direction after midnight. And you know how we love to get in on the science on Fox 6 and here on Fox Local. And boy, was this storm just chock full of science. I mean, really fascinating from a scientific standpoint to watch, not only from lake versus inland, but also just the various factors at play when we live next to a big warm lake this time of year, and that played a huge role. If our December had not been as warm as we had, if we had had a cold snap or two in December, today would have, I think, been an even more different day, both in terms of snow consistency, number one, and number two, near the lake, I think our folks would have had much more snow than they ended up with, and maybe even more snow in our inland counties. So really just fascinating from that standpoint. Another factor here are the wind gusts. Look at this. A wind gust now to 46 miles per hour in Sheboygan. This is why the blizzard warning is in effect for our northern counties. We have wind gusts above 35 miles per hour, which is the beginning threshold of a blizzard. So to get a blizzard, you need to have 35 mile per hour wind gusts or greater, combined with a quarter of a mile visibility or lower, and moderate snow, all for 3 hours or more. Well, we're seeing that criteria in our northern counties, not so much down to the south. And notice with that drier air coming in farther south, which is right on the northern edge of that area of low pressure where the winds are winding around, we're not seeing those strong wind gusts in Burlington and Kenosha. So the winds are actually going to get a bit lighter potentially here for a brief time in our southern counties. Then as the storm moves east, the wind changes more to the north and eventually the northwest, and the wind will pick back up again overnight tonight. So it's not only going to stay windy tonight, it's going to stay windy all day long tomorrow as well. And I'm getting a lot of questions about that as well for your Saturday. And that looks like off and on light snow showers, maybe an inch or so of fluffy accumulation as the temperature drops into the 20s all day long tomorrow, and that's going to be warm compared to what we've got coming in on Sunday. Low visibility continues, so yeah, stay inside tonight. We're so glad you're watching us on Fox Local, and we're going to keep the coverage going here as we go through the next half an hour and also through the night on Fox 6 as well. Guys, back over to you in the studio.
Thanks, Tom. I got some bad news. Power outages have now surpassed 50,000, I believe, for the first time today. We're nearly at 51,000 We Energies customers that are still without power. We've seen the number fluctuate. It's going in the wrong direction, Eric. The problem is the heavy snow and the wind.
Yeah, the heavy snow. So one thing, you know, last year, do you remember back in March, we had the big wet snow, kind of early spring. Trees are beginning to break out of dormancy, and that's where you get a lot of weak limbs. Still in the dead of winter, with heavy snow, I mean, just shoveling, you'll notice how much water is in every single shovel you take. All that weight has to do something. But we have talked with the We Energies earlier is mentioning how a lot of it's accidents into those power poles. But one thing I worry about is once we get those peak snow totals, as the wind starts to rock those trees, broken limbs on some of those power lines, that I wouldn't be shocked if we stay in that tens of thousands number, at least for a little while. They're playing catch up, patching on what other kind of power outages we do get, because likely there's going to be more as the night goes on.
Yeah, it's become a big issue. It's a big story tonight. We'll continue to follow the power outages. One place we know there is light is in Ted Perry's backyard. Ted Perry joining Fox Local Live.
He's struggling out there.
Whoa, look at the setup, Ted.
I'm not struggling at all. I'm so confused. Tom said stay inside. We were telling people to stay home, so I am still home. Whipping out the solo stove tonight. I don't know if you can see this. I tried to get the Weber going, but it's just too. The briquettes are too wet, so that's not going to happen.
You can get a better torch
why are we whipping
attachment,
out that? Yeah, you know, but I'm not a propane guy. I'm a charcoal guy, so that's going to have to wait until drier days. But it's very comfortable here, and Tom has nailed it with the moisture of the flakes. Now, I'm not going to get into Eric and Tom's expertise. But it does seem now, coming off the lake, and I'm about 4 blocks from Lake Michigan, it does seem that they are fluffier flakes right now, and they've been very wet all day. Ben, you know this. We live somewhat close to each other. And I said earlier, I went out to clear my drive and my sidewalk. I didn't know whether to use a shovel, a snowblower, or a shop vac. Because I think the shop vac would have worked, because it was so heavy and water latent that it's really difficult. And it was tough to move. I'm not going to lie to you. I was a little bit winded after that. This is not a dry snow at all. This is the wet snow getting a tad bit drier, as I heard Tom talk about just a few moments ago.
Ted, what is the drink of choice here tonight? We've had people drinking Foster's so far. What are we drinking right now?
Can I guess? I think Ted Perry's drinking an old fashioned.
I'm just going to say it's a drink that's keeping me warm.
Okay.
And we'll leave it at that. How about that? So
we should note that Ted's actually not working tonight, that we've asked him to come on his day off here on Fox Local. So, Ted, you're only a few blocks from the lake here, and as someone who drove from right where you are, even in the Brown Deer, there's such a
I heard your report on Fox Local I was listening to you on Fox Local before, and you were describing it perfectly. But go ahead with your question.
But for the people who are out west, maybe in Pewaukee, or they're just under like more than a foot of snow, especially when you combine all the storms that we've had, it is a totally different scene when you're right along the lake. What does your backyard look like?
It's not. I cleared my walk in my driveway at around 3 o'clock today, guys, and I haven't had to go back out and do it. It's just the moisture. It's wet and it's slushy, but it's not that much snow. I was hoping this would be a snowfall, but certainly not here. Eric, is it a different kind of snow as you go out west, or is it heavy? Is it heavy and wet there as well, or is it a little bit drier because they're a little farther away from
very heavy, Ted, but their temps, they're a good 2-3 degrees colder. Lake Michigan not keeping them as mild as it tends to do. They're getting those higher totals, Ted, but it's still the same amount of moisture. It's just more of it is as snow. Still, you probably can't really snowshoe through it, but you can make one mean snowman if you want to.
So I actually feel quite bad for those folks out west because it's really heavy to move. We didn't get a lot here. I could just kind of take the bigger, wider shovel and just go up the sidewalk that way to clear things out. It's really tough. So we joke around a little bit about how heavy this is, but please, 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 if you're not physically capable, do not try this. Have somebody do it. Call somebody. Call a nephew who owes you money or something and have them get over to it because it really is pretty tough right there.
Need another log there? Oh, there we go.
Nice, good place to get.
Yeah. Hey, Ted, I know the kids out west probably have had a good day. I saw some kids in the Bay today who looked like they had just jumped into the Whitefish Bay High School pool. Not the best sledding weather where you are.
No, not a lot of hills where we are either. There's the hill at Cahill, which is about from the top of this down to here, but kids love it. I didn't see a lot of that either. A lot of kids have been so anxious. Maybe they got a sled for Christmas or a little saucer or disc for Christmas. They just haven't been able to use them. And so they were hoping this would be, but you know how kids are. They don't care about the wetness of the snow or how dry it is or how perfect it is. They're in the snow. They want to be out playing. So I live near a football field here, and sure enough, there was a game, a pretty intense game with some high schoolers going on before that looked pretty fun. It looked like the classic Raiders versus Patriots game, with the Tom Brady. Was it a fumble? Was it a pass?
I wonder how many parents tonight have the mop out and they're having to just mop their entire first floor because the kids have come home. And
you got to have the mud room. That's necessary in a situation like this.
Didn't take the boots off right away, and it's so much moisture in here. I'm hearing in your microphone the wind picking up a little bit. Obviously, up north, that's where we've got our blizzard warnings that are in effect. We don't have one in the North Shore or in Milwaukee or our southern counties, but it's still windy out there, right?
Oh, the wind is definitely, the wind is coming out of the northeast for sure. That's east, that's north. Yes, northeast. See how I put those together? My mother wanted me to be a meteorologist, Eric, but I didn't have your brains. So
you got the looks for it, Ted.
It's kicking in pretty severely here. And Eric, what are we in for here for the next, overnight?
Well, Ted, first I'll say the meteorologist, you have to be really good looking, obviously, and really smart. So, Ted, sorry, you only checked one of the boxes. Okay. But looking at total-wise into tonight, I wouldn't be shocked if we get another 3-6 inches areas inland, but I think along Lake Michigan will continue a lot of what we've seen so far, a lot of wet, slushy snow, at least until that northwest wind kicks in. Then you might actually pick up maybe more accumulation than you've even gotten so far, just because it's not as slushy. It's less amount of water, but it's going to be more snow. It's going to be less dense.
Ted,
that I'm okay with.
Thank you for joining us here on Fox Local. I feel warmer just being in the backyard.
Well, I was going to hop into the ice bath, but I'll do that off air.
Oh, is that right? Is that what it is, right to the left?
That's a better location than our weather deck.
That's it, right there. Yeah,
just roll around in the snow. Do you need the ice bath?
That's a good point. Look, it's very slushy in there. I want to see what's in there. So.
All right, Ted.
He's going to need more beverages.
I thought about going in that. Yeah, but maybe next time. Maybe next time we'll go in there. But it's toast
as well. All right, that's what it looks like in Ted's backyard. Let's look and see what our viewers have been sending in. We've gotten lots of viewer pictures. A lot of dogs had a really good day today, and I think Michael's got some photos for us on cue. 5-month-old Apollo there. Been a while since we saw this much snow in one system. What do we got? Okay. Ooh, that was 13. Man, we're flying through
Are we
these.
in Russia now? We have a Russian dog.
Thanks, Sarah. In Menominee Falls. Man, up to your knees. Although it's a dog, so the knees are much lower.
Is that more
but-
like their elbow? It's always confusing how dog legs work, but yeah, up to
Lower
the knees.
East Side, Bam Bam loves the snow, and I love Bam Bam's jacket. Can't underestimate the dog jackets.
They are designer these days.
Just kind of like a
Looking
double
good.
jacket. Thank you, Jody. Appreciate that
Like the hood
photo.
look.
We've had so many viewer photos, and you can send them in. Keep
Aw.
coming. Bender the snow dog.
That's got to have some collie in him, right?
Coming out of Muskego. Muskego
Wow.
got nailed with this system, didn't they?
Sweet spot. Little Jimmy. Little Jimmy
Little
isn't so
Jimmy.
little right now.
I think I know who sent this photo in.
It's Big Jimmy right there.
Our producer, Jeff, feeds squirrels, even though we tell him he probably shouldn't do that.
It's a passion project of his.
Zaki County, you now have fat squirrels.
If he raises an army strong enough, I think we could get a little sled going, like a snow dog's sled squirrels.
Squirrels have had it pretty good, like all throughout December, no problem finding food,
Pretty
didn't have to go
mild.
through any snow. This got to be tough on the squirrels.
You'd think that all this snow would be chaos, but they do a lot of caching, Ben. So they have areas that they've prepped for this. Blue jays, crows, they're all kind of prepping for this. But really, this is our first week, Ben, that we've had legit snow all winter so far, all season. Really.
Well, and especially our areas out west, 1, 2, 3 times this week. So we're talking, has areas hit a foot of snow yet? I mean, we're talking 2 feet, really, with some of the communities.
If we're
and-
totaling everything since Tuesday. So Tuesday's system was kind of the precursor to this. Very eerily similar track, but we were even warmer then, and that's what led to a lot more slush for areas, at least especially lakeside. But heavy snow will continue on, but if you are lakeside, you'll continue to get a slushiness until at least the wraparound northwest wind pushes in. Now, dangerous cold is to follow. Do not lose track of this. This might be the more longer lasting impacts of things. Yes, snow is impactful. I thought Ted had a great point here. If you are not comfortable shoveling, just don't do it, especially if you have heart-related issues, any kind of issues as well. Overexerting yourself can be a very big hidden danger with some of these very heavy snowfalls. But to follow the cold air that's going to be coming on in, some of our coldest air likely since 2019. Won't be as bad as 2019, but it does look like it'll be some of the coldest air in quite some time. But totals are still coming in. Now we got the highest levels probably close to that foot mark at this point. Some of these totals now are a little outdated, but I wouldn't be shocked at all if we do have some foot plus areas when it's all said and done. North Prairie is an older number here, but nearly a foot. Pewaukee, 10.5. Plymouth, 9.5. Burlington, over 9 inches. West Allis, 8 1/3, but it's still falling down at a pretty healthy rate. And as we time it out compared to our biggest snows in the last 23 years, well, it's tricky. It doesn't say the whole story. So a 15-inch snow really doesn't happen very often. Rarely has it happened in Milwaukee's history, but that 10 to 15 range really once every 5, 10 years is generally when we get a snow that big. It only makes up generally 1% or less of snows that we get. Most of our snows are less than an inch, okay? So a snow like this doesn't happen all that often, but especially lakeside, it can be very tricky for Milwaukee to have some of their higher totals. Some of our biggest snows in history up towards Sheboygan, farther west as well towards Madison. That's kind of the sweet spot where Lake Michigan can't influence things as much. But for Milwaukee in particular, this will likely, when it's all said and done, will be probably within that 5 to 10 range. But because of lake temps, it's going to be tricky. Now, talking about why lake temps are such a big influence, when you're 35, 40 degrees, that much above freezing, it might be colder in the upper atmosphere, but as it gets closer to the surface, 1 inch of rain basically equals 1 to 3 inches of slush. And that's what we have seen in areas close to Lake Michigan. As you get a little farther inland, 4 to 5 miles in, 3 to 5 inches of wet snow with 1 inch of rain, that 33 to 35 range. And what we've been seeing tonight, especially get closer to Pewaukee, that's been the sweet spot. 1 inch of rain, 10 inches plus of snow. You're 30, 32 degrees. But as I mentioned, as we move forward in time, cold air is to follow. But Tom, as we look ahead into tonight and early tomorrow morning, we're still going to be seeing some snowfall out there. Will likely be impacted by that dry air coming down from the northwest. You're showing that radar image earlier. It does look like it's weakening quite a bit. We're not quite out of the woods yet, but timing-wise, what are things looking like now?
Yeah, I think we are getting better, Eric. I think we're starting to close in, which I'll show you in a moment. But hey, we got to give some shout outs here. Rob in Racine, just heard from Rob. He's tuning in here on Fox Local tonight. So big shout out to our friend Rob there in Racine. Want to give you his report. So he's about a mile from the lake, and he said only about 2 inches in the city of Racine, and most of it came before 9 o'clock this morning. And we talked about the influence of Lake Michigan and just how that warming influence really impacted areas right along the lake. So Rob had about 2 inches at his house. You go just a few miles west and you're getting into the 6, 7, 8, 9 inch range. You head out to about Pell Lake and there's 9 inches in the Pell Lake area. Hearing from Mallory and Elkhorn, for example, in Walworth County, Mallory coming in with 10 inches of snow out of the system there. So it's pretty incredible to see the temperature difference there, not only from lakeshore to inland, but that also played a role in terms of how much snow fell at Rob's house, for example, versus Mallory farther inland. Well, let's take a look, show you what's going on visibility-wise tonight, because visibility remains very low. This is a live look over the Marquette interchange, and the snow is continuing to fall at a good clip in the Milwaukee area tonight. In fact, I can see just past our camera out onto the Fox 6 weather deck, and it is coming down at a good clip here at our Brown Deer studios tonight as well. So we are not done with this snow yet. We're at 35 at Mitchell. Two big things to point out here. One, the temperature is above freezing, similar temperatures to what we had on Tuesday, but as Eric pointed out before, the system as a whole is a bit colder, and even lake water temperatures may be a degree or two colder than they were on Tuesday. That little difference is making all the difference as to why we have seen so much snow in our inland counties. Number two, northeasterly winds. That snow that's out there right now is what we call lake-enhanced snow. Blizzard warnings continue in our northern counties till 3 a.m. Winter storm warnings for everybody else. That runs until noon on Saturday. So here's the latest radar. And you can see here that we are starting to dry out in places like Kenosha County right now, Waukesha County as well. We are seeing the snow continuing. So you can see how it's kind of squeezing here from Washington County and then stretching from the south up into portions of Waukesha County, but we're seeing the squeeze. So we're starting to dry things out in Kenosha, and Rob, at your house, you're going to be drying things out here probably in about the next 2 hours as that gradually lifts to the north. So I think what's going to happen here is we're going to see this snow kind of collapse in on itself. Look at Fond du Lac. You can see how things are drying out up here. And what's going to happen as we head into the overnight hours, the storm itself, the area of low pressure, which is just down to our south, well, that moves off to our east. And what that's going to do is take that northeasterly wind, and it's going to move that wind. It's going to shift it to the north by about midnight, and then the northwest overnight. And look what is happening here to the west and northwest as well. You see these holes coming in on the radar? That's that drier air that's starting to infiltrate the snow. And that's what's going to happen for us as that wind shifts off the lake, because not only is it going to bring in the drier air, but once the wind leaves Lake Michigan, it shuts the moisture source off, right? So that lake-enhanced snow will cease to exist. So that's what's going to be happening here as we go throughout the night. Still a mix close to the lake here for a time, but see, after midnight, I think this is even a little bit too broad that the model is painting. I think it's going to be a little bit lighter than this is showing, but it's going to stay windy. And as we cool down into the 20s by morning and we start to see off and on snow showers tomorrow with roughly an inch of additional accumulation, that snow consistency is going to be different. It's going to be a powdery snow tomorrow, unlike what we've had for today. So that is something that we are watching for as well for us as we go into our Saturday. I think it's more blowing ground snow and temporary reductions in visibility at time as well. But again, it's going to be a chillier day tomorrow with temperatures in the 20s. And as Eric talked about, the big cool down coming in as we head towards Sunday, Monday, with wind chills of -10 to -20 all day long, guys. So here comes the cold after the snow moves away.
I want to talk about that really quick, because now we're starting to shift our focus as this thing starts to wind down. If we do not shovel this snow, guys, oh man, are you going to regret that decision, because this is going to freeze up really quick. When does the cold air arrive? When do we got to get the snow off our sidewalks and our driveways by before we really regret that?
Tomorrow night. Well, to be honest with you, if you can get rid of it tonight, that's probably a better plan because we'll be in the 20s tomorrow. So it's really going to start to freeze up tomorrow, but it'll be in the 20s. So I think you still have a chance tomorrow. And then late tomorrow night, that cold air really starts to arrive. All bets are off by Sunday, which, guys, I'll tell you, my daughter, I have an 8-year-old, and she loves to shovel. Suddenly, it's like this new thing. Dad, don't worry about it. I'm going to shovel. So
you must pay her pretty well.
All the time, all the time.
Take it while you can
Wait,
get
Tom,
it.
I got one last question for you, because
Sure.
these temps, if we do get down to -9, -10, I know a big factor I always consider is fresh snow. It's reflecting all that sunlight back, and so the sun, we just can't capture as much energy in the atmosphere. As we get into next week, we do have some sunny days as well, and we do have some very calm nights moving forward. Do you think we can push that 10 below range? Because again, we just haven't seen that since 2019. What are you kind of thinking right now?
And the fact that the lake is still so warm. Milwaukee, I think it'll be a struggle. Inland counties are certainly possible. I think, and as you're talking about in terms of the refrigerating effect, right, of snow. And I think that what's going to end up happening is that's going to be a factor in the next couple of days, especially inland where there's been so much of it. But it'll start to lose its effectiveness as the days tick on. So it still could hit -10 potentially inland early next week. But I think closer to the lake with less snow and also a warmer lake might be a struggle. But we might be -5 instead of -10. So kind of splitting hairs, right, a little bit there.
Get ready for one of the coolest things I think that happens around here, a steamy Lake Michigan.
On the water.
That's about to
Fire
be
in the
steamy
sky.
next week. All right, Tom, appreciate it. Thanks. Let's get out to Zoe Chapala. She's been on the roads all night long in some of the worst spots we've been seeing. I think some of the worst spots we've seen, Zoe, have been out in Waukesha County. Where are you now?
Yeah, so we're on I-94 West heading southwest toward Franklin. It's definitely a bumpy ride out here. As you can see, the roads are covered in snow and it's piling up. This is a lot worse than the last time we were on the interstate, which was around 4 this afternoon. And you can see these lights that are kind of illuminating the interstate. Craziest thing, they kept going on and off, which is a reflection of just how much the weather is impacting power. Thousands of people in Waukesha County don't have electricity right now, and that number just keeps climbing according to the We Energies outage map. Drivers are taking it slow out here. There's not many, but even that isn't helping them avoid those slippery and slick stretches.
Yeah, I'm going to try and pull up the We Energies number. It had fluctuated down, and here we go. Tori, one of our executive producers, 51,386 are still without power. So as soon as the number dips below 50,000, the next update seems to jump back up. So not surprised that you're seeing some of the fluctuation in the lights out there as they're being affected too. How about on the roads? The best thing I'm seeing here, this is our major interstate that cuts through Wisconsin, and I don't see any cars really on your side of the highway. How's the traffic, and have you seen any spinouts?
So not yet, but I don't know if you can kind of look, if you look to the left, we see some
Oh, here we go. We got flashing lights.
I'm not quite sure what's going on. You can, the barrier, I mean, the snow is just piled so high, it's kind of hard to see.
No, we've got some, yep, right on the other side of there. I'm not sure if there's flashing lights coming up on your side on the right as well up here as we'll get closer to it.
This is a good example of my favorite things that happen, though, during snow is collectively all drivers are just like, you know what, let's just stick to the one lane that kind of is shoveled, and then we'll just make a path wherever the easiest spot is. And that's kind of what they're following. We got like one lane, basically, that kind of has some clearing. Everything else is just a free-for-all.
All right, here we go, Zoe. What are you seeing up there? I'm seeing a lot of flashing lights as we're coming upon this.
My intuition tells me it's a spin out, but we'll have to wait until we get a little bit closer because the visibility is pretty bad.
I'm surprised to see I-94 in this condition.
So this looks like...
That is some pretty bad condition. Okay, let's see here on the left.
All right, so we've got a sheriff's vehicle.
And we've got multiple.
All right, and up here we have a truck that is pulled over on the side. So this has been a trend on I-94. We've got a lot of just like abandoned vehicles on the side of the road. No drivers in the trucks, but no drivers in the trucks or in the cars, but just these abandoned vehicles left on the side of the road.
Perfect time to talk about what's going on in Sheboygan County, too. There is a no-tow order that's been issued up there. So if your car slides off the road in Sheboygan County, they will not come and tow your car out of there. Your car is going to remain on the side of the road until this storm is over. Michael, where are we going here? I'm sorry, I didn't hear you there. Okay, let's get back out to another developing situation. We have a major water main break up on the northwest side of Milwaukee, and it's not just one water main break. We're dealing with several different water mains that have broken. Let's get out to Stephanie Quirk live on the scene. 91st and Mill, is that the location you're at, Steph?
Yeah, we're at 91st and Mill on the corner here, and you can see waterworks crews actually just started working behind me. They've been blocking the area off in the past hour we've been here, so, and now you can hear them starting to work, but this area is flooded. I mean, it essentially looks like a lake here, and what the city is saying is that people in this area are most likely dealing with low water pressure due to this water main break. Now, crews are working to isolate the water main breaks, which should help restore pressure, but it's unclear when or how long that will take. It's also made difficult to access valves for crews because of the snow and the ice. We actually spoke with a neighbor who lives right nearby here. He says his water pressure, it's essentially like a drip coming out right now, barely anything coming out. But you could see just how significant of flooding in this area that we're seeing here.
And Stephanie, they are blocking off traffic now. I just haven't seen cars go through. Is this now a closed situation? Oh.
Right on
yeah, it appears they're now.
Apparently not.
Yeah, well, they just over there. They are blocking off right over there, 91st and Mill. That way they're blocked off, but there were cars coming through this area. Now cars can't pass through on Mill Road going this way, but it appears that's the area they're working at. We also, the neighbor I spoke with, he actually sent a video of a crack somewhere in the road here. It's hard for me to see right now because of the water, and certain areas are blocked off, but there's a crack in the road, and you can see the flooding coming out of that crack in the road. He says it almost looks like an earthquake happened on the road, and it's pretty significant. So
yeah, that would be the water main that's running underneath the road, and when it breaks, it's going to crack the pavement that's above it, and all that water is rushing out. You can see them. They're using those concrete breakers there, the jackhammers, trying to get down to those pipes and get access to where it's broken. But again, according to Waterworks, this is several different breaks that happened. And Steph, this all started when a pumping station nearby lost power, right?
Yep, that's exactly right. The city actually says it was a loss in power at the Flores District pumping station this afternoon, which led to a reduction in pressure through the Flores District. And now, as power was restored, the increase in pressure likely is what caused the water main breaks.
Yeah, you kind of had a bottled up pressure, and as soon as the power came back on, bam, all these water mains have broken here on the northwest side. Have you gotten an idea of how large the area is, how many different, I don't know where the water makes it. 91st and Mill is kind of where we've been told is the center of the activity, but do you know how far around you they're working on water mains?
Right now, we saw several streets down, the roads are blocked off, and I can see it looks like a few blocks down, there's crews over that way on 91st going north towards Brown Deer from here. Again, we're in Milwaukee, but it seems like crews are working down there, covering this whole area. They also, MPD on scene also told me that several homes and businesses are also out of power due to the storm as well. And lots of people are dealing with water pressure. Now, the neighbor that I did speak with, he says he does have power, but it's just the water pressure that's affecting him, again, coming out like a drip.
All right, I can't take snow going into Stephanie Quirk's eyes any longer. We will get away from this shot.
Thank you, Stephanie, and stay dry, please.
We will see you.
I'll try, guys. I will try.
On the TV and on Fox Local at 9 p.m. Thanks, guys. Appreciate it. That's a terrible situation. And we still got the storm. It's still going strong.
And we always talk about, too, safety is the #1 priority. And there is some irony to where we're trying to show people what is happening out there, but we're also telling you not to travel if you don't have to. But as you look at this storm evolve, there's at least been some good things that are occurring at this time. Tom, you're showing this earlier, how portions of the northwest section of this storm that will eventually wrap down. Snow rates are decreasing, at least on radar. Now, I wouldn't be shocked, too, if we have dry air trying to work its way down from the northwest. There is a portion of this system down towards Illinois that's not producing any precip. How are things looking time-wise into tonight, and how much longer do you expect, at least, the main snow for accumulation to occur?
Sure. So it is all going to kind of start to wind down, although not winding down where Stephanie is right now, right at 91st and Mill. She's kind of in the thick of it. But overnight, we're going to start to see it wind down. You mentioned there's some good things that came out of this storm. Here's one. This is from our great viewer Heidi in Mequon.
Yeah.
Her dog Ruby shoveling, helping to shovel there in Mequon today. So Heidi, Ruby, thank you so much for reaching out to us here and sending this to us and watching us on Fox Local. We're glad Ruby was having fun there and, yeah, putting in some work. You got to put the dog to work, right?
I don't think it's helping, Tom. I think the dog is eating the shovel.
Probably pawing at it to get the
shovel
snow
might be
off of.
scaring it, okay? Maybe the shovel did something earlier. We don't know.
That's awesome. So, yeah, so that's so cool. Again, all of your photos have just been phenomenal. The visibility is still low. This is a live look out of the Marquette Interchange. We're just before 8 o'clock at night here. Temperatures are in the 30s. Oh, look at the wind. Out of the north-northeast. This just changed. The 8 o'clock update comes in at about 7:53. So it comes in a little bit earlier than the top of the hour. And that's significant because it was out of the northeast at 7 o'clock. Now it's out of the north-northeast. Doesn't seem like a big deal, does it? But it is, because that means the wind is starting to shift ever so slightly, and eventually it's going to be out of the north, which takes the lake influence away from this thing. Blizzard warnings up to the north, Fond du Lac and Sheboygan until 3 in the morning. Winter storm warning for everybody else until noon tomorrow. But here's the deal. This is what Eric was talking about, where we're starting to see it kind of die down in our southern counties and our northern counties and off to the west, right? So it's just kind of like a little bubble of snow here in the Milwaukee area, and right the heaviest right along the I-94 corridor. That has to do with the wind coming in out of the northeast. But once that wind shifts around, it shuts off the lake influence. This collapses in on itself, and we have the wind coming in out of the north and northwest overnight, which brings in this drier air that you see in the north woods of Wisconsin. So that's going to break up this snow as we go through the overnight. Is it still going to snow? A little bit. It'll be on the lighter side. The wind, however, will continue to blow. So you'll notice here as we go through the overnight, still some light snow around, but nothing near what we've had over the last several hours. So getting better, but if you have to be traveling overnight, it is still going to be treacherous. Now for your Saturday, we're going to have patchy light snow at times, maybe up to an inch of additional accumulation tomorrow. This will be more of the powdery snow that comes in for us because temperatures will be in the 20s. So make sure to get that snow off of your driveway, if not tonight, sometime tomorrow, because temperatures are going to be dropping significantly by Sunday. In fact, temperatures for highs in the single digits. So what's out there now isn't going anywhere. In fact, for at least a week, the way it looks right now. Maybe by a week from Monday or a week from Tuesday, we come out of the cold, but it's going to be a solid 7-8 days of cold around here before we start to warm back up. So we've been warned, right?
We've been warned for several days. Get your long underwear ready, your favorite scarf.
It's been fun, guys. This has been a good time having some of this coverage here. And I really do appreciate, Tom, adding that extra, at least showing kind of the good things that are happening. We got dogs having a great time with some of this
Dogs
stuff.
don't mind this, do they, guys?
They love it. They love it.
All right, so we're going to keep our coverage going here on Fox Local. And, of course, we're going to keep the updates going on Fox 6 News at 9 for the TV folks. But it's been fun for the last couple of hours. So we're going to take a second here. We'll reset, but don't go anywhere. Thanks for joining us here on Fox Local.
It was a lot of fun, though.